Today I would like to tell you about Suvorov's childhood. He was born on 21st November. He lived in a noble family. His father, Vasily Ivanovich Suvorov, was an ancient general and senator, the author of the first Russian military dictionary. His mother, Avdotia Fedosevna, belonged to an Armenian family. Alexander spent his childhood in his father's estate village. He grew up weak. Due to the weakness of his health, his father didn't think about his son's military career and prepared him for civil service. However, the boy showed a craving for military affairs and studied military history. Also, he was fond of playing soldiers. A family friend, General Abram Petrovich Hannibal, saw the boy's military passion. Alexander
During the Suvorov's career as a commando, he participated in more than 60 fights but didn't lose a single one. The most famous battles are the Battle of Prague and Novi. He is known for his care for soldiers. Suvorov was incredibly respected in the army. He instilled in soldiers the spirit of victory. Also, he took part in the creation of a new practical uniform for soldiers. He came into conflict with the emperor about the uniform that was made by the Prussian example. He suggested to use the uniform that didn't restrict movements. His tactic was storm and onslaught, instant decision making, rapid attacks, and rapid concentration of forces.
I would like to give a talk about the period when Suvorov started his military education. In 1742, Alexander Suvorov was enlisted as a mosquito in the Semyonovsky Regiment, in which he began military service in 1748, gradually increasing in ranks. Suvorov served in the Semyonovsky Regiment for 6.5 years. At this time, he continued his studies, both independently and attending classes in the Land Gentry Cadet Corps. He studied several foreign languages. While serving in the Semyonovsky Regiment, Suvorov stood guard, where his first meeting with Elizabeth I took place. The Empress liked the young soldier. She gave him a silver ruble.
Alexander Vasilievich Suvorov took many cities by storm during his military campaigns, but one of them was founded by him. Alexander Suvorov is considered the founder of Tiraspol, since it was on his instructions that Sredina fortress was laid on the left bank of Dniester in 1792 to strengthen the new borders of the empire. The city Tiraspol was founded at the other fortress Sredinaya. Tiraspol received the official status of the city in 1795. The last military campaign of Alexander Suvorov in Swiss Alps was commemorated in painting Suvorov's Crossing the Alps by great Russian artist Vasily Surikov. The painting was conceived in October 1895. The artist traveled to Italy to create sketches, and the work on painting was completed in 1899, the century of Suvorov's campaign in Switzerland. In the same year, Nicholas II bought the painting for the Russian Museum.
During his life, Suvorov had served for 3 emperors. They were Elizabeth I, Catherine II, and Paul I. Suvorov was born and began his military career during the reign of Elizabeth I. Once, when Suvorov was being on guard, Elizabeth noticed him. When she had found out that he was the son of Vasily Suvorov, Elizabeth gave him a silver ruble, but he refused. Elizabeth liked this, so she put the coin on the ground. Suvorov had been keeping this ruble until the end of his life. Speaking about Catherine II, he treated Suvorov with great interest and respect. She presented him the Order of the Star. The period of reign of the Pavel I wasn't easy for Suvorov. After becoming a ruler, at first Pavel started to reform the army. He had introduced more violent rules and more soldiers were punished. Suvorov didn't like these changes and he became openly criticized the emperor. Because of this, Pavel sent him into the deportation in 1797. Suvorov had lived in poor conditions in the Kobrin village for 2 years. But then the Russian-Austrian army needed a commander, and Pavel I had to apologize to Suvorov and called him into the war. Unfortunately, despite the battles has been won, after the victory, Pavel again wanted to take revenge and didn't even receive Suvorov in his palace.
Suvorov was not enrolled in military service, but meanwhile he showed a very strong inclination for this specialty, and his studies took a direction corresponding for this inclination. Suvorov began to get carried away by books of military history. He became more and more fond of military affairs, but that did not please his father. Vasily Ivanovich hoped to engage his son in some civil or perhaps diplomatic activity, but later, on advice of a good family friend, General Hannibal, who later played a very special role in Suvorov's life, he gave his son a complete freedom and wrote him to a guard in Simonovsky regiment as a private in 1742. But Suvorov entered there only 3 years later, in 1745. It's practically unknown what he did for these 3 years. Most likely he continued his self-studies, but Suvorov couldn't get a good military education, since his family did not have a large number of military books, and Vasily Ivanovich, his father, couldn't buy him as they were very rare and expensive at that time.
In conclusion, I'll say that Suvorov was an outstanding historical figure because everyone still talks about his achievements. Then we should not stop discussing this, because this is our history, and only we can preserve it and hold it down from generation to generation. Russia gave to the world a lot of talented and genius people in such spheres as art, science, culture, but we also had quite a few military genii, and Alexander Suvorov is one of them. A lot of people called him the invincible commander because of his brilliant military career and battlefield victories. Some countries even asked for his help in their conflicts. The soldiers loved their commander because he treated everyone with respect and care. They believed that Suvorov would lead them to the victory, so each troop fought selflessly, and the enemies trembled during the battle with his army. He lived alone an active life, serving other 3 emperors, Elizabeth I, Ekaterina II, and Paul I. At the end of his career, almost 70-year-old Suvorov made a military campaign in the Alps. This cannot fail to impress.
Today I would like to give a talk about Suvorov's peace campaign and the Devil's Bridge. The peace campaign of the army of the Second Coalition under the command of Alexander Suvorov, undertaken in September-October in 1799. One of the greatest victory of Suvorov campaign was the victory in the battle for Devil's Bridge won by Russian soldiers on the 25th of September in 1799, and it could be only provided by a Latin dash across the Swiss Alps. And in 6 days, Alexander Suvorov and his troops reached the Switzerland. Suvorov led the main part of the army along the right bank of the Royce River near to Devil's Bridge. Realizing that there was no way to attack the French positions, the French troops, head-on, and Suvorov sent 2 detachments around. 200 huntsmen were marching down the valley of the Royce, and above 300 soldiers were making their way on the gold trails. But when the Archangel soldiers suddenly appeared over the French positions, the enemies began to retreat. The Devil's Bridge was destroyed, and the Russian army, under the command of Suvorov, won.